Okay, I think I lost it. The end of Oak Street and the end of the summer movie season. Director David Robert Mitchell hasn't made a movie in 7 years. 7 years! You know, the guy who made the now classic It Follows and the non-classic Under the Silver Lake. But I would have expected a summer blockbuster from this guy. It's got a little of that Spielberg, Amblin nostalgia magic. It's got visual effects. It's got Anne Hathaway again for the 4th time this year. But we did get a Spielberg movie this year. I know a lot of people have already forgotten, but we had Disclosure Day. And for most, including me, a little that didn't live up to the Spielberg hype. So does this movie out-Spielberg Spielberg? Anne Hathaway and Ewan McGregor play Denise and Greg Platt. It's 1982 Michigan, and they seem to have the perfect family and the perfect neighborhood. But all is not quite what it seems. Denise and Greg are on the rocks, but this family is thrown into even more chaos when magically their whole neighborhood is transported back to the prehistoric era. That means freaking dinosaurs in their backyard. Now the Platts will have to put aside their disagreements and come together as a family if they want to survive this time period and get back to theirs. Yes, that is the premise, and it's the type of high-concept premise that we might have gotten in the early 80s. Director David Robert Mitchell is obviously iterating on Amblin Entertainment, the production company that Steven Spielberg spearheaded and that produced such classics as Poltergeist, Gremlins, and The Goonies, let alone Spielberg classics like E.T. Largely, the Amblin movies took place in suburbia, where strange things happened and regular people had to face them. So with that foundation, Mitchell has a lot to live up to, because our nostalgia won't let us futz with the formula. We know what an Amblin movie feels like, or do we? Because a lot of the Amblin idea is based so much on nostalgia that we've kind of collectively forgotten what these movies were actually like. So recent riffs on the formula, like J.J. Abrams' Super 8 or Stranger Things, have, let's say, the notes of the Amblin pictures, but they don't quite know how to play the music. For the first half of this movie, the end of Oak Street is playing the music. It has a twinkly John Williams-esque score, courtesy of Michael Giacchino. It has a rich and textured look via it was shot on film, and it has excellent actors taking this silly material seriously. Now, I love a genre movie that doesn't wink, that always plays it completely straight. That's not to say this movie isn't light and funny, but that's also to say that when the dinosaurs come out and shit gets real, well, the stakes get real. That might be the truest thing to those old Amblin movies, because even though they have creatures and they have specters and they have cute little gremlins, they never lose sight that these things are in the real world, and in the real world, people get hurt or killed. And that is exactly where David Robert Mitchell takes this. Yes, you have a lot of close calls, yes, you have your Deus Ex Machinas, but people do die in this. The neighborhood gets pretty wiped out from these dinosaurs. Now, this is PG-13, so we don't technically see it, but this is a pretty nasty PG-13. And with Hathaway and McGregor and the 2 kid actors, Christian Convery and Maisie Stella, you have all the ingredients for a perfect family adventure horror romp. And the best compliment I can give for Mitchell and his crew is that they capture that childhood imagination. No, not the childhood imagination of whimsy and wonder. I'm talking the imagination of shock and awe. Like being bored in the classroom and doodling a velociraptor tearing someone apart. Like driving in the back seat of your parents' cars, looking out the window, and imagining a T-Rex rampaging through your streets. You guys didn't daydream like that when you were kids? There's a middle portion of this movie where the family gets separated at night in their neighborhood. It captures a sense of play and fright of being in your backyard playing in the dark at night, or out in the woods, or out in a park after hours. The familiarity of suburbia of your neighborhood becomes now frightening and unknown. So when Mitchell marries that skill with some actual traumatic moments, I mean intense and nasty stuff, there's a moment in this movie that goes a direction I didn't think this movie had the guts to pull off. And it silenced the entire theater. It's thrilling stuff. And unfortunately, Mitchell can't sustain that sense, because everything after has to wrap up this premise, and it ultimately has to renege on that shock. Yes, the ending of this movie is a total cop-out. Now, I know, ending time travel movies and sci-fi, it's hard, but I'm not even sure that the ending of this makes sense. I'm not even really sure how it works. Not that this needs a dark and bummer finale, but I would have respected this movie a lot more had the consequences of this premise been kept intact. And as such, it's 2/3 a really thrilling movie, and 1/3 just an okay one. I think the biggest thing about this movie where it doesn't quite reach amblin status, a lot like Super 8, is that it can't quite marry its big sci-fi premise with its broader themes. But these amblin knockoffs always forget what truly made them special. Special like E.T., where Elliot's loneliness due to his parents' divorce makes him in need of a friend. A friend he makes that just so happens to be an extraterrestrial. If Mitchell and company had been able to marry this awesome premise with a larger point, this thing would have been a new classic. And let's be honest, it's probably the best dinosaur movie since The Lost World Jurassic Park almost 30 years ago. But I think for now, it's okay to let some of that amblin nostalgia go. It's okay to maybe riff on that type of premise and then do your own new thing. For a while, the end of Oak Street makes the old feel new again. The end of Oak Street is a fun and nasty genre throwback. For 2/3 of this really does capture some amblin magic, making it shocking and thrilling. The end is a total cop-out, but this is still a respectable 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you like this review, please like and subscribe or follow me on Letterboxd at RamirezS.